This is a fun one because you can only have five here on this list, but I know you would have liked to have 8, 9, 10, 11 because the class is that good. But we begin at
Right.
five, and no argument here. T. Higgins from Clemson. What do you see in him?
Well, T. Higgins, when you first turn on the film, you go, huh, I'm not like amazed by his explosiveness, maybe his quickness at the line of scrimmage, his ability to run a comeback where he can explode into the break and then explode back out and snap his head around. Like, those are things that I look at and go, huh, he can get better. But, okay, I see him do it with the ball in his hand, right? He'll have the ball in his hand and he'll make these drastic cuts and moves. So there I piece things together and go, ooh, I think he'll be able to run crisper routes because I see it when he has the ball in his hand. So when he gets NFL coaching and people stay on him, I think he's very capable of doing that. Now, the positives are he's a giant. He's I would say this is Plaxico Burress almost, all right? He has a
Six,
chance to be
six,
that
four, and
type
some
of player.
change. Yeah.
Right. And he's got great long speed. He's got very good strength. He runs through arm tackles. When he does catch the ball, you're not going to be like, "Oh my gosh, he might go 70 yards to the house," but there's no hesitation. He rips the ball out of the air. He gets upfield and gets positive yards. I'm a big fan
Right.
of that. But the biggest thing more than anything, Paul, is yes, I see room for improvement as far as the route running, but the size and ability to catch 50-50 balls is as good as anybody in the class. So, one,
Right.
he can get out the side of you and run right by you. If he gets a clean release, he's a little bit of a long speed guy, but once he starts to open up, man, he chews some yards up and he can run by you. Then, two, if you are covering him and you feel like you're in good position, he's unbelievable at playing the ball in the air, going up, snatching it 50-50, back shoulder. If he has a chance to get two hands on it, he's going to catch the ball. And that's where I
Right.
really like T. Higgins. And that's really his value. Again, it's not always the best highlight film when you watch him, but I think his game's really going to translate to the NFL that way.
And looking at some of my notes, they kind of go along with what you say. I have in all caps, not great speed, but makes up for it with body control and ability
Right.
to get the 50-50 balls. I wonder about his separation from a very good corner at the line of scrimmage. He has that nice build-up speed, which can work sometimes, but I'm going to be looking forward to watching him in that situation this fall, creating
Yes.
separation against a very good corner. But my favorite part about him, thinking about for quarterbacks, what's the hardest part of the field to have success in? It's the red zone
Yeah.
from 20
Sure.
and in. And I think he will be an asset to whatever quarterback gets him, number one, because of what he can do in the red zone.
He's the premier jump ball guy in the draft. He
Exactly.
is. So to your point, exactly right. You're on the 6 yard line. It's 2nd and 6 or 2nd and goal, and you got T. Higgins to the left against, hey, most corners, this, are 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1". It's very
Right.
rare that you have a 6'3" corner, right? I mean, that's what made Richard Sherman rare that way.
Yep.
So tremendous value in that. And yes, the separation thing is real. I mean, I understand you there. Now, I just think I've seen enough athletic ability and explosiveness to think, okay, I think he can improve on that. Clemson's offense, I don't look at it as like, again, an extensive route tree. It's a little bit of a college offense. They just rely on their talent that way. But yeah, I'm playing the odds that he can do it. But I think if there's concerns, hey, you look at LSU, you look at Ohio State in those games, there was some issues there at times when talented corners got in his face and got their hands on him at the line of scrimmage. You're
How
right.
much
He
did
did
that
not
bother
always
you?
separate.
How much did that bother you against those very good teams?
It did bother me. One of the things I wrote on the bottom of my notes was just that, he feasts on the weak a little bit. He definitely feasted on the lesser competition and maybe didn't rise to the top, against the better competition. But again, I think between the size, the long speed, the ability to adjust to the ball, the ability to snatch the ball out of the air, and then in the NFL offense with NFL quarterbacks, at the very least in year one, he can be your starting X receiver. You put him out there on the line of scrimmage, and he's just one of those guys that even when he's covered, he's not covered. And there's value
Right.
to that. Size is a
Right.
skill. We can't forget that. And yeah, I like what I see from T. Higgins. It was a tough call at number 5. I had about 3
Mm-hmm.
guys in the running for number 5. I ultimately went with the guy that I thought had elite traits because of the elite size and the elite hands to me, and that's why I made him number 5.
All right, number 4, let's move on to the Big Ten and a receiver with a lot of upside, but different types of upside because the size here is a lot different with KJ Hamler.
Yeah, KJ Hamler's my number 4. I mean, he was a guy I think I was probably the most pleasantly surprised watch so far at the wide receiver position. I had heard about him. Hey, you're going to like this KJ Hamler film. I had some friends in the NFL tell me and all that. Man, I turned that shit on and I was like, whoa. I mean, this can run. I mean, he can really
speed
run.
jumps out right away.
The speed jumps out right away. And again, now the size thing. Okay, let's hit on the negatives right off the bat. Yeah, I get it. Negatives are he's
5'8".
small. Yeah,
5'8".
5'8". I think he officially got 5'9", 178 at the combine.
Okay.
Hollywood Brown was 5'9", 165 or something like that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little worried about that too. But the one thing that Hollywood Brown showed me this year is that's another thing in this day in NFL that's a little overanalyzed at times. You can find ways to get these smaller guys clean releases, putting them in a bunch, putting them in a stack, motioning them. So the size factor is not as big anymore as compared to all the different things this day and age in the NFL a guy like KJ Hamler can do. And the speed is real.
To that.
Go ahead.
The speed's fantastic. And I want to talk a little more about that because there's an issue with it, with his injury. But back up to that point about using a small-ish kind of receiver in a slot and also this bunch formation that is now so popular in the NFL and how that helps a guy like this.
Yeah, well, again, when he's in those slot off the ball stack bunch where now he's 2 yards off the ball and has somebody in front of him, it takes away the fear of a Stephon Gilmore, a Jalen Ramsey just putting their big palm in his chest and stopping him. No, now
it removes the biggest worry.
Exactly, it removes the biggest worry. Exactly right. So there you go. You're worried about the size, but you want to go, hey, this is not 1987 football anymore. Receivers aren't stagnant. Most offenses move and change formations. And that's the great value, let alone, hey, I mean, all the different ways we're seeing these type of guys be used with the speed sweeps, the wide receiver screens, anything like the reverses, anything like that. There's more value in these guys now than ever. And I think Hollywood Brown broke the mold a little bit last year. He makes me feel more comfortable about KJ Hamler. Hey, Hamler's hands, okay, they're not perfect, but I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, man, I can't draft him because, he had 3 drops last year that I saw. All right. I mean, no, he's not perfect that way, but he's a game changer. The speed is real. When you see him in man-to-man situations or zone coverages, his ability to get on top of the safety or threaten the safety in no time is as good as anybody I've seen in the draft. It's up there with anybody, and that's where he's really special.
He killed Michigan this year. That was one of his better games, and obviously, anytime you line up against Michigan, there's going to be some talent there. One question about Hamler, though, that's very unique to this day and age. Like you, Chris, I turn it on, and right away you sit up, the eyes get bigger with the speed because it jumps off. It looks like a 4.3 kind of player. Now, he was injured at the combine and couldn't run a 40. Teams can't get out and do the pro day thing. They can't work him out. They can't get the official time on him. So you have the size thing, which as they get further and further along, you pointed out very well that it's not as big a deal as it used to be. But 5'9" is scaring people a little bit. They can't come to the draft room and like, hey, he ran a 4.35 for us. Forget about that size. With our creativity on offense and that speed, it's fine. They don't have that tangible to point to. Do you think some teams will be scared away because they don't have that right in front of them?
I think so. I think there'll be a little bit of fear there, and along with the size and just maybe old world thinking. But, I'll give you 2 examples. First off, Paul, you saw the film. You said it. The Big Ten is full of like NFL defenders in the secondary. The SEC is number 1, we know, but the Big Ten's number 2 between Michigan and Ohio State. Yeah. He's running by them. Those are guys that are going to be in the NFL, and he's just flying by them. So I think he's one of those guys that's rare in the fact that his speed is so good and it jumps off the screen in such a way that I think that most teams are going to go, you know what, it doesn't really matter. 4.31, 4.29, 4.38, whatever, the fast. That's what he is. And I
Right.
think, like Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown couldn't run the 40 last year. Lamar Jackson
Good
didn't
point.
run the 40 2 years ago. And nobody cared
Hmm.
because you just saw the film and you went, damn, they're the fastest guy in
You
the
trust
field.
your
Who
eyes.
really,
Yeah.
right? Who gives a damn? Now, and one other
Right.
point I want to make too here, you know, again, the production thing bothers me sometimes too. And I've heard it a few times with KJ Hamler, and I just want to go, well, listen, he can't help if the quarterback doesn't throw him the ball. I mean, I can't tell you how many clips I saw of him wide open downfield running by defenders, and the ball doesn't go to him. So I
Right.
can't like downgrade him because the quarterback didn't throw him the ball. So we have to
And I
take that
also,
into
Chris,
account.
yeah, I also want to point out too, you talk about numbers. Last 2 years, he had 98 catches for almost 1,700 yards. So, I mean, he didn't absolutely kill it like some of these guys up in the 2000s for 2 year production, but it's not like you're trying to say, you're not talking about someone who only had 600 yards receiving the last 2 years. I mean, these are pretty good numbers.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a way to set it straight because it's not like a projection type thing. You're right. We've seen
Right.
enough. The guy is the real deal. And, the point I'll make too is you put him on Oklahoma in the Big 12 and you give him Kyler
Mm-hmm.
Murray and Baker Mayfield and tell me what the difference is between him and Hollywood Brown. I would say none. I would actually tell
Right.
you I think KJ Hamler's a better route runner than Hollywood Brown was coming out last year. Yeah, and not
Okay.
to say that's a strength of KJ Hamler. He's not the greatest route runner in the world, but I think between that, all the things we've talked about, the offenses in the NFL this day and age, the way the rules are set up. Hey, the way the rules are in the NFL too, they're going to allow smaller receivers to play football for a longer time. You don't got to worry
Mm-hmm.
about Ronnie Lott ripping your head off anymore. If
Right.
if Ronnie Lott rips your head off, he gets suspended and doesn't play football. So that's going to allow some of these guys to make their careers last longer and everything that way too. But I'm a big fan of KJ Hamler. One of my favorite surprises of the draft so far.
Put a period on him with this number. And I like to look at receivers this way. I mean, the catches and yards and touchdowns are great, Chris, but 17 yards per catch the last 2 years against, as you mentioned, some very quality defensive backs in the Big Ten. It says a lot, even though they did have some quarterback issues there this past year. All right, so we had at 5 T. Higgins, number 4 KJ Hamler, Penn State. Same kind of player at number 3 from Alabama, Henry Ruggs.
Henry Ruggs the third. I mean, speed kills. Again, a lot along the same lines as we just talked about KJ Hamler. I mean, same type of guy here. Except I would argue that this guy Henry Ruggs is more explosive. He's stronger, more physical, and that's really the value of him. And he was stuck in an offense that, hey, was really creative, but had like 3 other first round receivers on the roster. So it took
This,
away
yeah,
some of his production and the ability of him becoming the go-to guy. But,
right.
I look at Ruggs and just go, again, the value of these type of guys, the stats don't really say it. One, what they can do on
Mm-hmm.
special teams. Two, what they can do after the catch. I mean, this is a guy, Tyreek Hill-ish, McCole Hardman-ish, right? I think he's better than McCole Hardman was coming out,
Yeah.
where he can catch a screen or a slant and go 70 yards for a touchdown. He can do the same thing in the kick return, punt return game.
Yes.
Hey, yeah, is he again, is there a little concern like I saw with T. Higgins, LSU, they got their hands on him a little bit. Did that affect his release a little at times? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, those are some of the negatives you look at, but I think the
It's fairly
value,
common. It's fairly common
yeah,
for a super fast guy, and he ran in the 4.2s. You can't say
right.
that enough. 4.2s. He will be the fastest guy in the field almost every single game he plays. But a lot of times, these really fast guys can get pressed at the line of scrimmage because they're so used to relying on their speed.
Yeah, that's it. This is one of those things where I truly think that's it. He hasn't worked and become a lot nuanced at that part of his craft yet. Because you said it,
Right.
he hasn't had to worry about it. He's been able to just give one move and then just fly up the sidelines and beat anybody with speed his whole life. But then he got against LSU and they have like 2 first round corners and they were like, okay, you're not just going to beat us. We can turn and run too. We're no slouches. So that changed the
Right.
game a little bit. Does he have things to work on there? Yes, but I think, again, this is a guy that can improve as a route runner. Certainly he's a little stiff that way, but this is,
Mm-hmm.
you can't look at it as traditional wide receiver. Again,
No,
he is a
exactly. And
weapon.
right.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, Chris, I think that this gets me to the number one positive about him. We say it a number of ways, both sides of the ball. There are a lot of examples. It's a copycat league. And look at what Andy Reid has done with Tyreek Hill. Every other team, now, they don't have Andy's creativity in his playbook, but they can watch it and work toward that and see what he's doing, ways to get him the ball, jet sweep outside and all those things. But I got to think there's some general managers watching what Andy did and thinking, boy, if we had Ruggs' speed, if we had that speed on our offense and some creativity, we could do the same kind of thing. And I think teams are looking at it that way. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised because of that speed and because of the example shown with Reid and Hill that he is the first one taken off the board.
Agreed. I mean, you made all the points. He opens the field up for the rest of the football team. He's a game changer in how defenses have to approach your offense.
Right.
Just think about it this way. It's 2nd and 2. Oh, let's bring in 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, and now let's split out Henry Ruggs the third on this side. Oh, what do you want to do, defense? Do you want to leave him man-to-man in this short-yarded situation? Oh, you're going to leave him man? Hey, check. We're not going to run the ball. I'm going to take a one-on-one shot with Henry Ruggs now. Oh, hey, now they're playing double cover to Henry Ruggs because they're afraid he could, run a deep post or a go route. All right, now we're going to run the ball because we got the number looks there. He's a game changer that way, let alone stretching the field, commanding safeties over the top. That's going to open up everybody else. And to your point with the Tyreek Hill thing, that's spot on. Again, hey, let's go back to 2018. Tyreek Hill, 1,400 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns receiving, all right? But he also had another 8 touchdowns rushing 1 touchdown rushing the football, and then some return touchdowns to go along with it, all right? And,
Right.
6 points on the board, that doesn't go on your stat sheet. But that's
Right.
tremendous value, all those extra touchdowns in the kick return, the punt return game. Oh, we gave him a speed sweep. It changes the game around to where it makes everything easier on the whole organization. We don't always have to
And
worry
you know
about
what
a
else it does?
10 play, 80-yard drive.
There you
Every
go.
now and then he
Exactly.
gets us off the hook and gives us a 2-play, 90-yard drive because he made an
Right.
88-yard run and catch or something like that.
And intangibly, Chris, I mean, there's no way to measure this, but think of how many times each game Travis Kelce was more open inside because of something Tyreek Hill did to the outside of him, or how much Sammy Watkins was open because when you
Right.
draw a play on the board and send somebody deep, hey, he's going to take the corner with him. They don't always take the corner with him. How often did he actually take the defense with him and make the field that much more open for everybody else from a home? So that there's an intangible value to what these kind of guys can provide.
Yeah, no, you said it. You're exactly right. And again, it's not always the prettiest route running, but I think this is a guy that's got big time potential, a lot like a Tyreek Hill. Now he's not as thick and as strong as Tyreek Hill, and I don't think he's quite as fast as Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill is arguably the fastest human being I've ever seen on a football field. It's between him or Deion Sanders. Ruggs
Right.
is really, really freaking
He's right
fast. I'm
there.
not trying to take anything
Yeah.
away. Yeah, it's really close. I think Tyreek Hill would beat him in a race, but he is that type of game changer nonetheless. And I do think he's got a toughness and an attitude about him. He blocks in the run game. When he sees it like, okay, there's nowhere to go, he is not afraid to just, tuck the ball away, put his head down and take contact. Those are all things I really
Yeah.
like about his game and his attitude altogether.
You talk about his toughness, and that was really my second favorite thing. I got so many notes on watching him, but after the whole Andy and Tyreek example, normally with a track speed guy, and I'm not thinking of exact names right now, but think about how many times the last 20 years, oh, somebody's got track speed, and you kind of have to sacrifice toughness. You sacrifice some hands, and you sacrifice a lot of contributions on special teams outside of that speed. And you're not doing that with Ruggs, which makes him that much more different.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. Track guys too, yes, suspect hands, usually don't like contact.
Often,
You're right.
right?
Yeah, exactly right. And, I'm not going to sit here and say the hands are the best in the draft, but the hands are good. And he tracks the
Yeah.
ball well on deep balls. I mean, I just really think this is a guy too he's only going to get better as he gets an NFL experienced team. They start to feature him more and design more and more plays just around him. I think that's going to
Right.
be very easy for an NFL play caller to do, and that's what's really exciting about Ruggs. You said it off the top. Hey, speed kills. You can't replicate it, and he has elite speed, just like KJ Hamler, game-changing type speed. And I'm into elite traits when we're talking about top rank at your position or first round pick type guy, you better have something elite about your game, to me, at least.
Okay, so if you're doing the math at home and you've been keeping track with all the reading and doing your own studying and watching as well, we're in a interesting spot here because we have two spots left. 5 was T. Higgins, 4 KJ Hamler, 3 Henry Ruggs. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, there's Jerry Jeudy still out there, there's Justin Jefferson still out there, there's CeeDee Lamb still out there. One of those guys isn't going to be on your top 5. I'm just throwing that out there because it's going to get super interesting as we get up here to number 1, as one of those names is not going to be around. So that being said, number 2, Justin Jefferson, LSU.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, I think, is one of my favorite players in the draft, really. I mean, he really is. And I just look at Justin Jefferson and I go, what's not to like about the guy? I mean, I don't really get it. I don't understand why he's not getting more hype. First off, 6'1", over 200 pounds, looks and plays way bigger than 6'1". Like, if I was watching film and didn't know his height, I would have thought he was a 6'3" receiver. But, again, this is a different guy in the fact where I don't look at him, and I've missed out on these guys typically, all right? This is where I want to start this combo, I think, a little bit. I undervalued DeAndre Hopkins when he came out. I undervalued Michael Thomas when they came out because I went, oh, you just can't put them on the outside and they're just going to burn by people all day. Okay, well, you don't always have to be that. I mean, that's what I've learned from them. They win with physicality. They can run routes. They break tackles after the catch. And, of course, they have the flexibility to go inside. And Michael Thomas is basically a slot receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is in the slot probably more than half the time, too. And that's where I look at Justin Jefferson and just go, to me, it's off the charts. I mean, first off, great route runner, can separate from people, fearless over the middle, snatches the ball out of the air. And, people might say, well, what's the big deal about snatching the ball out of the air? Because guys who snatch it out of the air, they don't break stride. They never slow down. So they can just snatch it, and they're already looking upfield where they got to run instead of the guy who's like watching the ball come in, and then he's cradling it, and then he looks up, and it's like, no, you've slowed down, and you've lost your eyes, and now you're about to get tackled. So think of Deebo Samuel, what he does. He just rips it out of the air, and he's going around, zoo, 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 right? Jefferson can do the same thing.
It's also something, snatching the ball out of the air, Chris, as I thought about it, that can fall under the heading of quarterback friendly. And I mean, all these picks aren't made to make the quarterback happy. They're made to help him produce on Sunday or whatever night they're playing. But quarterback friendly with snatching the ball, contested catches. We talk about this all the time. It's not just the 50-50 ball, the 9 route thrown down the sideline. You're this open on a 10-yard in route. And if you put the ball right where you want and it's right here, what's the difference if the receiver catches it here or goes and gets it there? That's the completion or the incompletion. So that just triggered a thought. You're talking about snatching the ball. I mean, that's I don't want to say it's a quarterback's best friend because there's so many things that could be described that way, but it is a massive asset to the quarterback if you can snatch the ball.
No doubt. It's more yards after the catch. And like you said, you're running a curl route. Instead of just sitting there waiting for the ball to hit you in the chest, you go and
get knocked away.
Grab it. Yeah, now Jalen Ramsey can't get his hand in there. And then, you get your 10 yards. But then added to that with this guy, I mean, first off, he can, I like him more as a slot type guy. I think that's what he is. I think that's his best spot.
He was about 90%, I'm guessing, about 90% in the slot this past season. So
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. And I think that's what it'll be in the NFL. But he can win on the outside. I saw him do it enough to go, oh, if you got to put him outside, he can do it. Between his route running, I think he's one of the better route runners in the draft. I think he understands how to set up DBs. To me, 50-50 balls, I think he's arguably the best in the draft at it. I have a hard time finding a 50-50 ball where he doesn't come up with it. No matter who it's against, he can create separation. Yards after the catch, it's not going to wow you like Ruggs or KJ Hamler all the time, but damn, go turn on the Texas game. Go watch the Final Four, national championship games and all that. He makes a lot of plays after the catch. He can break tackles. He's got pretty good quickness. So I just look at that and again go, okay, yeah, he's not the most explosive receiver in the draft, but he really understands how to play the game. He has great hands. He's a great route runner. And this day and age in the NFL with offenses and moving guys like this around again, yeah, I think his value is more in the inside of the field, just like a Michael
Right.
Thomas. And, I think most people would tell you they think Michael Thomas is the best receiver in football right now.
Yeah, over 3,000 receiving yards the last couple of seasons speaks pretty well to that. I have a couple of questions about Justin as it relates to the fact that you have him rated at number 2. I like to sort these guys. For example, KJ Hamler and Henry Ruggs because of the speed, they were kind of the same kind of guy. And Ruggs is better because of the speed and all the things you can do with a 4.2 as opposed to maybe a 4.3 or 4.4. When it comes to Jefferson, I kind of have him with T. Higgins, who you had at number 5, and the kind of receivers they are. I know
Yeah.
Higgins played more outside in college, and Jefferson was more inside. But when you compare those two, what's the difference in having Jefferson at 2 as opposed to Higgins at 5? What made Jefferson better to you?
I think the biggest thing is the route running. He really understands how to run routes. He can really work the middle of the field and create separation that way. I think ultimately he had more plays after the catch, actually not even close, against really high level competition, where we just talked about T. Higgins,
Yeah.
kind of feasted on the week and disappeared a little against Ohio State and LSU. Justin Jefferson's the opposite. I mean, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
Florida, Ohio State, Clemson. He went off. He just got bet. Oklahoma. Oklahoma. He got better. I mean, he really did. So, that's to me the other thing. It didn't matter who the competition was, what the situation was. Justin Jefferson made plays, and that's where I really look at it. And I think just the biggest thing is, yeah, he's not as big as
Mm-hmm.
Higgins, and maybe not I think he's just more explosive off the line of scrimmage. I think, I don't know if his long speed, I don't know if he can chew up ground like T. Higgins can, but I think he's a little different in the fact that
Right.
he's a better route runner, can work the middle of the field, create separation that way a little bit better, and to me was better after the catch. I really think people are sleeping on Justin Jefferson. I don't understand why more people don't have him towards the top of their quarterback wide receiver rankings.
What about the fact that he was with Joe Burrow, who was just fantastic this year with the anticipation and the accuracy? It's amazing how few mistakes he made with decisions and also with his accuracy. I know it's easy to, for example, to ding a guy like Tua a little bit because he had so much talent around him. He made a lot of open throws. Did you consider that at all when looking at Jefferson that, hey, the best quarterback we've seen in a while, at least the best quarterback in this class, was throwing the ball right on the money time after time?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I looked at that, certainly. I always take that into account. But the other thing I take into account is he was the go-to guy on the number one team against all the best competition in college football and always answered the bell. And there was plenty of times where I went, that's not that great of a throw, but it was completed for a 30-yard gain because Justin Jefferson went up and snagged it or mossed somebody or, jumped up and
Mm-hmm.
back shouldered, two hands snagged it out of the ground as he's falling down. So I saw enough plays to go, hey, these weren't great throws. This isn't the offense delivering for him or Joe Burrow just making life so easy on him that, oh, wow, I don't really know how good the guy is. No, I saw too many
Mm-hmm.
high level plays against big time competition where I just went, I mean, that's just special. Silky smooth route runner, faster than he gets credit for, better after the catch than he gets credit for. Seems like every 50-50 ball, he catches it. I just think he's awesome. I think he's made for this NFL right now, 2020 NFL. And yeah, I think the majority of his game will be in the slot. And you'll move him outside from time to
Yeah.
time. But huge fan of Justin Jefferson. I think he's one of the can't miss prospects of the whole draft.
Yeah, absolutely wore out a lot of good defenders in the slot all season long at LSU last year. Okay, that brings us to number 1. And as I said before, you can do the math and figure out one of the very big names at wide receiver in this class is not going to make the top 5 list. So CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy is going to be your number 1, and the other is going to be left out. So who's at the top?
Well, it's CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is the best wide receiver in the draft for my money. I just think everything we've kind of just talked about with all these receivers, CeeDee Lamb kind of has it all. He really can. I mean, he's a good route runner. I think his speed is on the field better than what he ran on his 40. I know he ran a 4.5 at the combine, which is fast but not blazing. But I see when he gets pressed man-to-man or something like that on the outside, he can run by you. And if he doesn't run by you, again, like we talk about a Jefferson or a T. Higgins, he's a very good 50-50 back shoulder, can really track the ball well. And then the other thing that's the most impressive about CeeDee Lamb is he's just a baller. He's the best in the draft with the ball in his hand. The first guy never makes the tackle when CeeDee Lamb catches the ball. He always makes the first guy miss. And then he gets up the field. He can break arm tackles. He can break your ankles in space. I just look at CeeDee Lamb, and I just think he's got a little bit of everything, let alone when the lights come on, he seems to play his best. And, yeah, I just looked at him with no weaknesses to his game, really. And I think he is a superstar in the NFL because I think he's a guy that you can put outside and say, hey, go beat the best corner in football. But you can move him inside, and I think he can do some of the Justin Jefferson stuff we talked about as well and be really dangerous that way with the ball in his hands. I kind of use this as my comparison, right? To me, he's like got the body of DeAndre Hopkins kind of that way, except he's better with the ball in his hands than DeAndre Hopkins ever was. He's almost like DeAndre Hopkins in size, but Jarvis Landry with the ball in his hands, where he can just make people miss in space, break arm tackles, do all those type of things. Tough as hell. I love CeeDee Lamb. He was no doubt my number one receiver in this draft.
You bring up Landry, you bring up Hopkins. Is there anybody more specific that you can think of, whether it's from last year's class or anybody playing well at that spot in the NFL right now in terms of the cutback ability and the make you miss right away and the fact that nobody makes the tackle? The first tackler never makes the tackle on CeeDee Lamb. Does he remind you of anybody?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's a tough find to find the exact comparison because it's rare that you find a guy.
I couldn't think of anybody.
No, it's tough because it's rare to find a guy that's 6'2" that can have the wiggle and make people miss the way he can make people miss. It's very rare. That's why I combined two. That's why I was like, his body's DeAndre Hopkins, but his movement in space is like more of a smaller, compact type of wide receiver. And that's why I use Jarvis Landry, because he could be going one way and then just, bam, plant his foot in the ground, wiggle his head, and, bam, all of a sudden he's going the other way, and he didn't lose any speed or anything about it. And that's where I just think it's special. So, no, I think that's probably – I'm trying to think. I'm looking at some other receiver names if there's just anybody else out there that jumps out to me. But when it really comes back to it, I think it's a little bit of a combination of that guy. I think that's why he's special. You don't usually see taller, longer guys be able to do the things he does with the ball in his hands. Very, very rare that way, let alone he also has the big wide receiver traits where he can go up and catch back shoulders and 50-50 balls, and he adjusts really nicely to the football. So, yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb is, for my money, there's no doubt. I think this was easy. When I got done watching these guys, this was the easiest ranking of all. I went, no, CeeDee Lamb's the best receiver in the class. I don't even think twice about it.
Was that easy to have him at number one?
I do, yeah. I just came away going, I don't really have any questions at all about CeeDee Lamb game. I really don't. I saw him get off press coverage. I see him be able to threaten people with the vertical route. Is he the best route runner I've seen? No, but he's still very good. He can work the middle of the field. I mean, Paul, him and Justin Jefferson, Higgins, as far as going to attack the ball, man, there's so many plays where Jalen Hurts kind of throws a lob, deep cross or a crossing route, and there's a DB close, and CeeDee Lamb makes sure he goes and gets the ball, which then gives him extra time to make that DB miss and make a play after the catch. And it's every game, and I just think he's a special, special player that way.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.